You can't start the car. Johnny has the keys.
Hello, hello, hello out there in podcast land. You have reached Johnny Has the Keys, where we talk about science fiction movies and horror movies and those key elements that lift them above the genre fare, the standard genre fare. Whoops, got a little tongue tied there. I am here this week with my friend David Horton. Hello, David.
Hello,
How's it
Tim.
going?
It's going well. What about you? Doing
Very,
well?
very good.
Good.
I have been indulging in a bit of nostalgia from actually probably before our childhoods, but we saw them as reruns in our childhood.
Yeah.
And I would be talking about Mr. Ray Harryhausen.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
I mentioned a few podcasts back
Yep.
that I had seen Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. But recently TCM had a plethora of films to choose from, including one I had not seen, two maybe that I had not seen. Starting with The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad.
Oh, yeah.
1958.
Skeletons.
Skeletons.
Yes. Yes.
Actually, that's just the one skeleton, though. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the Cyclops.
Yeah, the Cyclops, but there's a skeleton in it, right?
There is one skeleton in it that ended up being a model for another movie that I watched called Jason and the Argonauts.
Argonauts.
Lots of skeletons.
Yes.
Fighting. That was actually 1963. In between, he did The Three Worlds of Gulliver, which I had never seen, and was
I've never seen that.
It's actually quite good.
Okay.
I mean, it's not as what I would call adventuresome or thrilling with, a lot of monsters and stuff, but the special effects are great. Lots of miniatures, because Gulliver first is a giant in the Lilliputian land, but then later he's small in the other land. So you've got different things going on there, which
cool.
A little bit of the social commentary from Jonathan Swift and the original novels. And in between Three Worlds of Gulliver and Jason and the Argonauts, I watched Mysterious Island. I watched them all in order of how they came out.
Excellent. Love Mysterious Island. Great Vern. Some great Vern there, baby.
It is. It is basically a sequel to 20,000 Leagues. It's just not produced by Disney.
Yep.
It was, the sequel to the novel. So to say, because what's his face? Captain Nemo is in it.
Yep.
With giant crabs, giant birds,
giant bees.
Yes. So, but anyway, Harryhausen was, pretty much I don't know what the word is.
Oh, he was
a genius
for so long. He was special effects. Always something new, different, amazing, and just the painstaking time to do that.
And make it look real and still look good today in some regards.
Yeah. The only thing I think that throws it off at all today is some of the optical, because the mix with the motion plate isn't exact. So the lighting looks just a little off a little bit sometimes, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And I had seen Seventh Voyage, and I had seen Mysterious Island, but I had not seen Three Worlds of Gulliver. And I find out I had not seen Jason and the Argonauts. I thought I had, but
really? I love Jason and the Argonauts. Yeah.
That's probably the best of all.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, because it's the Greek thing, and I'm into the Greek thing more than I am the Sinbad thing. But anyway, the Greek mythology.
Yes. Yes.
So what have you been up to?
I finally, I've started saying I've got this list keeps getting longer and longer of all the stuff that I need to watch and need to catch up on. And so I finally said, okay, I'm just going to start at the top of what's on my list and needs to be done. So I finally watched Bly Manor.
I knew you were going to say that.
So yeah, I did. And enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah.
Really did. And I love, I understand what you meant now. You're saying, you kept saying in earlier podcasts when, after you had seen it and everything, you said, it's not The Haunting of Hill House. It's not the same, but it is, but it's not, and I can see all of that now and see, this is the way, I think this is the way American Horror Story should have been done. Repurposing the cast in different roles, but very unique. Some homages to the previous season, but nothing overt kind of thing.
And strong story arcs, not just little tropes to throw in there and, sensationalize it. Yeah.
Definite strong story. I love the interweaving of the stories. It's it feels like you're watching short stories that are all tied together, which is what it should be. Great casting, just some good, really good stuff. Good surprises. And I understand what you're saying about, it doesn't have to me, it doesn't have the jump scare or the dread that Hill House did, but it has that suspense and it has tension and it has good ghost story feel to it.
He's a ghost director.
He is. He's the ghost. He's the ghost director. Obviously.
He is.
Yeah.
He's done plenty of ghost stories, and I wouldn't be surprised if he did more. He's done at least 4.
Yeah. Well, and this one, it was really good. I really like her. Still, just amazed that this is like the second major thing she's ever done out of community, theater, sort of thing, which is great.
I can't think of the names because I don't have it in front of me, but I love the black woman with the almost shaved head. Her hair's really, really short. She's fantastic.
She's fantastic in it. I liked his wife in her role was really strong in it. I loved the cook. The guy was great and well acted and was a really good character piece.
Yes, and it was very diverse. There were more women than men in it. There were different ethnic backgrounds in it. It wasn't just, white men and women in Victorian land,
Right.
It was great.
Oh, and I love the gardener. She was great.
She's awesome. Yeah.
And they kept calling her puppet. What's a puppet? Yeah, it was great. Yeah, I loved it. So we might want to consider doing an episode, whether it's for all of you out there listening or whether it's for our Patreon subscribers or something that's just Bly Manor, because
I was thinking we should just do a small free one for Patreon, because I've already talked to one person that said, "Hey, are y'all going to do a podcast on this, like Hill House?" And I was like, not that long, but yeah, we might do something.
We won't do one episode, but maybe one. Each episode, but maybe one episode of us. So yeah, I think that'd be worth it, because it was definitely very good. And then I'm getting ready to. I need to finish Queen's Gambit. I started it, but I haven't finished it yet.
Oh wow, that's addictive if you start getting into that again.
And then I want to watch Mank, the Gary Oldman
Amazon
Mankiewicz. Mankiewicz and Orson Welles story. I want to watch that one. So I'll do that.
Speaking of which, do you ever watch Turner Classic Movies?
I do when I can and when I like what they're offering.
One of the hosts on there now is a Mankiewicz, and I'm just wondering who he's related to.
Ooh, he might be.
He usually does like the intros or the outros when they're talking about movies.
Yep. I have to look at that. That would be but yeah, I'm interested in that, just because, classic movie, classic storytelling, classic Hollywood. So let's find out about it more, sort of thing. Yep.
Well, we've been to Ray Harryhausen land, and we've been to Bly Manor, and now we're going in outer space. So I have no segue at all.
There's no segue. It's perfect. It's perfect non-segue.
And you know what? I may have given it away because I happen to be there.
You're already there. You're visiting with Huey.
I've got Bruce over here, and I've got Huey over here, or Dewey or Louie. I can't remember which one.
Yep. Huey and Dewey. Yeah. Yes, we're definitely in science fiction world this week. For those of you who just didn't see the title before you clicked on this, we are doing Douglas Trumbull's. In my opinion, probably a science fiction classic, or one that should be, I think, on people's list, Silent Running, which came out in 1972. And a brief synopsis of it is basically in the future, all of the flora and fauna, all plant life, everything on Earth is gone. Instead, it has been put in these biospheres that are attached to these huge freighters and has been sent out in far, far orbit in the system. So far beyond Mars, but not to Jupiter yet. And it's being caretaken by, a small skeleton crew of astronauts on each ship in the fleet. And the story basically follows one ship, the Valley Forge, and the lead in it, whose name is Freeman Lowell, who is essentially their doctor, who is also a huge botanist, who loves the forests and loves the animals and is a very 1970s-esque pseudo hippie tree loving, sort of character. And the order comes down from Earth that due to the expense and the need for the freighters back on Earth, they're supposed to blow up their domes, get rid of all of that plant life that we don't need anymore, and head back to Earth. And Lowell is naturally in disagreement with this order. And he ends up essentially mutinying against the crew and trying to preserve the very last remaining forest of Earth. I'll save my opinion. I want to hear your opinion first. What did you think of this movie?
I think this movie has a great message. I think that's the power behind the movie, is the message. But I also think that, and I see where you say that it could be considered a classic, but I see almost what's the word I'm looking for? I feel like this could potentially be a retaliatory effort on your part for me suggesting that The Wicker Man was a classic.
No, I do think Wicker Man is a classic. I do think and it should be watched.
I think they're almost right there.
I could see that in comparison, because this is not a good movie. I mean, it's not a very well done movie. It's got huge issues.
It's got music equally as bad as.
Oh my, yeah. Okay.
The Wicker Man. Equally, if not worse.
Worse.
Yeah. It's Joan Baez, or something. It sounds like her anyway.
Watch the one about the happy dance as we circle the maypole and think of human sacrifice, rather than listen to her say, "Have you hugged a bunny today?" or whatever.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't disagree with you that it warrants its place in the oeuvre, but I think that if you had to say, okay, pick a horror equivalent that you would choose, that it would be Wicker Man.
Okay, I can see that. I can see that. And I agree. I don't think the movie is great. I do think the movie has great things going for it. And mine really wouldn't be the message so much, because I think the message is almost preached too much in it.
A little bit.
What I like most about this movie, and why I think science fiction fans should watch it, is the uniqueness of it. The vessels themselves are very unique, and the way they're structured and built at that time, that was a cool design. This was before Star Wars. This was before, a lot of the major 70s sci-fi films. It was after 2001. And as a matter of fact, that's one of the biggest keys, is Trumbull actually, got this movie because of 2001, because he worked on 2001. But the cleverness and the unique and, never been replicated, in my opinion, design of the robots, of Huey and Dewey, and the design elements of the ship, the magic cam process he used to actually shoot the opticals, which is still look great today. And especially when you consider, and I guess that should have been like a caveat to watching it. When you watch this movie, the special effects shots are done in camera. There is no post optical. They didn't superimpose stars. They didn't superimpose one ship on the other. They shot them that way. and that lighting and everything else. And that shows, I mean, it holds up today. There's no CGI. There's no computer graphics. The uniqueness of shooting aboard a battleship or an aircraft carrier so that it has that cramped, small feel to it of a spaceship without having to build those sets. And at a time when everybody was getting ready to do their, worst Buck Rogers kind of thing, and everything was going to be egg cartons and twinkly lights,
Right. And they actually recycled some of this film for Battlestar, the original, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, of course. And use the ships, the models, and the biospheres were actually a part of Battlestar as well.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah.
I didn't really watch it. I remember Lauren Green was in it.
Yeah.
You mentioned the uniqueness of the vessels, though. I love those geodome things. And when I was a kid, I was always like drawing my dream house, and it was going to be a big dome kind of thing like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Historically, or history of the film itself, I thought was interesting. Like I said, basically Trumbull got it because he had worked on, he had worked on 2001 and doing some of the special effects. And 2001 was supposed to be similar to the novel in that it was the Discovery was supposed to go to Saturn, not Jupiter, but they couldn't do the effects for Saturn. So Kubrick opted to do Jupiter, where they could do that. And Trumbull pitched the idea that I can do Saturn. If you give me enough time, I can do Saturn and do that whole sequence, and it'll look cool going through the rings of Saturn. And that was basically a selling pitch for this movie, because it was not going to be a greenhouse ecological message movie to begin with. It was just going to be, one guy and his two dogs kind of story. Was the basic concept.
Been there, done that.
I was going to use that at the end as a key, but you already you
hilarious.
Got there.
Okay, we still can.
But a guy and his dogs, sort of story. Yeah.
You mentioned Trumbull. I don't know a lot about him. I know he did a lot of great special effects, though, including Blade Runner and Star Trek: The Motion Picture, which is basically just an effects movie anyway. There's not much more to it. But he also did Brainstorm, which I found very interesting. That was Natalie Wood's last movie.
And it's another good movie. Christopher Walken's in it.
That is, yeah.
Yeah, that's his only other big directorial thing, in my opinion. He did a few other ones, I think, but Brainstorm was the other one that I think denotes mentioning kind of thing.
And I haven't seen it since it came out, but I do remember kind of liking it.
I like it. I've seen it several times. I like the whole story of, especially at that time when everybody was just doing VCRs. That's basically all we had. The concept of a machine that could actually record your dreams. And then he ends up, not your dreams, your experiences. And then when someone ends up dying and you record that experience, that tape becomes very, very important. So I like all of the spiritual, scientific, warmongering kind of, things that they do with that story. It's really good. Did you get any emotional context with this movie? I mean,
I never realized how much Bruce Dern reminds me of Jack Nicholson until I watched it. I mean, it's like they went to the same school of acting.
Definitely.
His subtle expressions and the small ticks in his face as he's talking. I was like, wow, he reminds me of Jack Nicholson.
And going from that small intimacy to, you know why? It's because you don't do it. Because you don't know, just getting that in your face.
The intensity. Yeah.
I agree with that. I think that a good key would be Nicholson.
And then, there's a lot of emotion with the, I want to call them droids because they remind me so much of the droids in Star Wars.
That's a key.
Yeah. It's more than a key. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Lucas said, that's why I wanted R2-D2 to be a little person, But I thought, the reason I ask is I don't get that much emotion with Lowell, I think, the way that they wanted you to. And I think part of that is because Dern is so kind of standoffish from the very first scene and kind of stays that way the whole time. He's kind of zealotous.
And then he kills people. So you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah, zealotous to the point of you're going, I don't know if I really, but I do feel for the droids and his relationship with the droids. Mm-hmm. You know, I got upset when Louis, you know, droid 3, I think he didn't even name him because he hadn't made him Dewey yet, but
he hadn't named the 3 of them yet.
Yeah, so it was like droid number 3, you know, loses its arm and blows off during the rings, and then the whole ending with you're going to take care of the forest, and then no, he's going to stay here with me because he's hurt, and and it's just like, oh, you really do feel like it's a guy talking. I
didn't understand that logic. I was like, why wouldn't you let the hurt one stay with the other one? You're just going to blow yourself up.
Well, because he couldn't do anything. What was hurt was his arm. So he would basically be able to waddle and bump into things, He couldn't do anything with his arm. But that, those special effects, I mean, those robots are convincing.
Oh, yeah.
They really are. You look at them and go, okay, that would work. And that makes sense to me. But they all 3 have personalities. Mm-hmm. I love the fact that one is always, talking. And I like the one that always sits down every time he comes in and he just goes, boom.
Yeah, I've got a dog that does that.
And they do that great shot that one time when he's coming in and you just see the 2 droids in the foreground from the ground, and the one reaches its arm up and goes and taps the other one and it sits up. It's good. Yeah. They had personality, which is amazing because they have no faces. There is no face on them. There's nothing even remotely anthropomorphic about them. And yet they have personality and character, and you care about them. Mm-hmm. More so than you do the guy.
Well, they start that off at the beginning with the guys driving through his garden. You already hate them because they're assholes.
Yes, yeah. Definitely. I mean, that's the other thing. It's a very one note sort of there's no dimension or any depth at all to even Lowell. You don't know anything about his past.
No,
you only have the fact of assuming he's the doctor because he knows all the medical equipment. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But it's never said, hey, Lowell, you're the doctor, take care of this, other than that one scene where he says, treat that guy's hand. Right.
I'm surprised they haven't remade this.
I've heard that it's been in turnaround like 3 different times.
I mean, especially with environmental stuff being such a huge thing right now, politically.
Well, it would be a good one right now because of climate change and all that. Exactly. This would be a good movie to remake as long as you didn't, in my opinion, tamper with it too much.
Yeah, because, I mean, you want to keep the small story in there, too. You don't want to overwhelm it with the larger chunks.
Right. And there was talk of a sequel at one point of an Earth ship encountering the biosphere and all of that. I'm afraid that if they did remake it, they would ruin it. They would try to change it too much or try to give it a more uplifting ending.
Well, I mean, how many remakes are good? Not many.
True. Yeah. But I like the whole 70s feel of this, that it's still dark at the end. It doesn't end happy. It's not a nice.
No, and I mean, I don't have a lot of feeling that ship is going to survive. I mean, I think eventually the power's going to run out or the robot's going to keel over or something. I mean, it's just kind of going out there, and what happens.
Yeah. I mean, even if it was gaining energy from solar power, it's going to be away from stars pretty soon.
Right.
Which means it's not going to have it. But then again, we said the same thing, and Voyager is still going. And it's been like, 30 years sort of thing. So it depends on that. And again, I think another thing I like about the movie before we go too much into, cast or other details is it was made extraordinarily cheap and extraordinarily fast. This was under $1 million in 30 days or 32 days to shoot. For something this complex, that's crazy. Now, the effects were longer. The effects were over a year. But
I'm
That's
fascinated by the writers, and I think that
oh yeah.
explains some of it. I think the fastness and the efficiency is because Stephen Bochco was one of the writers on it,
Hmm.
and he's a TV writer. I mean, he's done tons of television shows that were huge,
Oh
like
yeah, Hill Street
Hill
Blues.
Street Blues and and
Hmm.
and a lot of cop shows type, and L.A. Law. Didn't he do L.A. Law too?
Yeah.
But then again, it's also co-written by Michael Cimino, who
Hmm.
was known for directing one of the biggest turkeys in Hollywood, Heaven's
And
Gate.
also one of the biggest movies, which was Deer Hunter,
Right.
which was written by the other writer. The third person who wrote this script was the writer of Deer Hunter.
Derek Washburn. That's the
Yeah,
third
Derek
guy.
Washburn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow, this is a really weird movie. This
Uh-huh.
combo of writers and this director that really just does special effects. I was like,
Hmm.
what's going on here?
Yeah. Yeah. And it was very uniquely thrown together. It's kind of like, okay, we're going to give you your movie. But, a key for me for this is Dark Star. It reminds me a lot of Dark Star, which
Yes,
was,
I could see that.
Carpenter's experimental college movie, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the fact that, we've said it countless times on this, this podcast of, necessity is the mother of invention. If you don't
Mm-hmm.
have a lot of money, you make things work. And I think that's what he did. He took over an aircraft hangar and turned it into the granary, or the area where they're chasing the little things around, but also the whole biosphere. All 6 biospheres that are represented are filmed in like a 100 square foot area. This really tiny area.
They're
to make
miniatures.
No, the actual, when they're in the biosphere.
Oh, I thought you meant the ships.
Yeah, no, when they're in the biosphere. So he's swimming, when they show the desert, when they shows him planting, the whole fight, all of that is done in a very, 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 very small area.
It looks kind of confined. Yeah.
But and filming in very cramped, they basically got the use of an aircraft carrier before it was decommissioned.
You didn't ask me something you usually ask me, and I'll do it now.
Oh yeah.
The first time I saw this, I'm fairly certain was with you on videotape, because I didn't even know it existed. And
Probably.
and the whole time I was watching it, I thought, this is a TV movie. This looks like a TV movie, because I think it's got something to do with a lot of it being recycled and used in Battlestar or other shows at the time, because it just looks like a television movie to me.
It does. It's also lit like a television movie. It's very broadly lit. There's not a lot of unique cinematography to it. It's very straightforward. It's very basic. Yeah, I could see that. Buck Rogers the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Buck Rogers, Battlestar, all of those 70s series. That was
the stuff that came out right after Star Wars hit.
Yeah,
and except it was the television versions.
A lot of the 70s movie of the weeks and television and everything else were topic movies.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a definite topic movie.
Logan's Run always looked like a television movie to me, aside from the nudity.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree with you. And I think, to me, a lot of that is lighting and film stock. It's the way they shoot stuff. They do it fast, easy, and cheap, rather than take the time to light it and do it. I mean, look at this compared to what? Just the same year or a couple of years later when was Halloween? Wasn't that
78?
78.
Mm-hmm.
So like 6 years later, and look how moody and unique that was lighting wise,
right?
Compared to this, So,
well,
so there was that.
But that being said, the print I saw was really good. I mean, it looked clean.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
It looks great. It's restored really well, or it's held up really well. I think it's. What about scenes? Were there favorite scenes you had that you liked, or that were very
the scene where he saves the robot immediately comes to mind.
After he hits it, where he damages it somehow.
Yeah,
he's racing He tells
Oh yeah, he tells it to go somewhere. It doesn't get there quick enough, I guess.
No, it tells it to stay in the dome. Stay in the dome. I'll be right there. And he comes racing down there, and suddenly in the tunnel, he hits
it's
it.
like a collision.
What were you doing? I told you to stay in the tunnel.
Yeah.
I told you to stay in the dome.
And so the scene where they do the surgery, that struck me as really emotional. The scene where the robots do surgery on him was a little bit less so, because I was like, really? Can they do that?
Yeah.
Because he hurts himself early on, and they end up repairing him because he gives them memory banks of like medical science or doctor stuff.
Reprograms them so they could do it,
which is smart, but it just seems like there would have been limitations with the
and terrifying. Yeah.
Yeah, that too.
And I like
one of the thoughts I had though is, why is it called silent running? Why do I don't know what that term is. Is it like
silent running means to go with supposedly, and I kind of heard this as part of a documentary, because there's a couple of good featurettes and documentaries out about this movie, but originally there was a longer sequence explaining what Lowell's plan was, which was to fake the damage to the ship going through the rings and then to run silent like submarines do, and so that they would never be able to find him. And that's why it becomes such a surprise later on when they do find him, and it has to result in the very last act or the very end of the movie. But silent running is what submarines do when they don't want to be found.
Well, that's exactly what came to mind when I heard the title, because of the Run Silent, Run Deep Robert Wise movie. Mm-hmm. But I think it might have benefited from another title.
Maybe. God Save
I think
the
it could have been
Trees.
more popular, maybe, with a different title.
Robots are cute.
Save Earth.
Save the trees.
Save plants.
Plants are your friends. I
said that the surgical incidental music sounds like canned TV music.
Yeah, that was bad. It didn't work to build the suspense of that scene at all.
No.
But for me, I personally liked the photography of that scene, because those arms couldn't do what those arms could do, not on the actual physical actors and actresses. So they had to cut it and edit it in a way that, the arm comes down and moves and everything else. Right. And that's not really, and the way it turns and spins, which they can't do in a long shot sort of thing. So I like the way it was cut and edited. We haven't talked about,
though? I don't know. Do you have scenes? What scenes stick out to you?
Just for me is a classic scene to me is, and I think some of this was improvised, but it was the scene where he's so bored now that he doesn't know what to do. So he reprograms them to play poker.
Right.
And then they have the poker scene and they're cheating and everything. And he's going, what you threw away? Why are you doing, and again, to me, as soon as I saw it again this time, I thought, oh my gosh, that is Jack Nicholson from Cuckoo's Nest. And that was a little baby key to me, was because he's going, no, you don't get you don't get 20 cents, you get shit, whatever. When he's talking about one cigarette is 20 cents, you tear it in half, you don't get 2 nickels or 2 dimes, you get shit, It's very Nicholson in the way he's talking to them. But that's a memorable scene. And I've always loved the ending because it just comes from nowhere. You
with
go,
the bomb.
Wait, he's doing, what is he doing? Oh my God, he's going, and then it happens.
It's just boom. Yeah.
Boom. Yeah. And the whole, just keeping that pulse heartbeat kind of thing under that, I thought was cool. When I was a kid, the first time I saw this, I remember being as perplexed as he was that why the forest was dying. And then when you figure it out, you go, duh, how stupid can you be that they're going farther away from the sun? So duh, you should have figured that out. But I've read reviews where people go, that's just the most stupid premise. And how would a botanist not know that the sun would So,
Well, my premise, the thing I thought was kind of stupid is, yeah, you're going to plug those lights in, but those lights aren't going to last as it goes further and further out.
yeah, well, unless they're solar powered, but then again, there you go.
Right.
But back then, remember, part of the story was, if it's nuclear powered, it'll last forever.
Well, yeah,
So,
whatever.
Yeah, they had that.
And then another scene I liked was just him getting rid of the dudes. I mean,
oh, the way he blew the domes.
and
Yeah. Well, he had to
basically trap two of them in one.
Yeah. Yeah. He had to kill the one guy. And I think that was basically an accident. He didn't, I don't think.
I don't think that was totally intentional.
And that's where he also got injured too. But then coming up with the whole faking the plan and everything else and trying to, I love the character of the voice of the other ships, and you never see those people, but you hear the two distinct voices, whoever the commander is, and then the guy from the other one going, "Hey, Lowell, you doing okay out there, buddy? Blah, 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 better inject those domes so we can go," and all that. I mean, casting wise, I'm sure there wasn't a lot of casting stuff for this, right?
No, I do have a very little. Bruce, of course, was in The Cowboys, which is a John Wayne movie I like.
Woo, good one too, Mr. Anderson.
Nebraska, which he got a lot of acclaim for, and I have not seen. And then he was in Big Love, which was a show on HBO that I really liked. I think.
Oh, and he's in Hateful Eight, Quentin Tarantino.
Right.
Really good in that one.
I read that he said he was cast in this movie after 17 other actors turned it down. And I was like, well, I wish I knew who those actors were, and I'd be talking about them right now because I couldn't find them. And then the only other thing is that Ron Rifkin reminds me of Bob Balaban. I think he's a Bob Balaban lookalike now. And Jesse Vent was also in Chinatown and Little Big Man.
Okay.
I mean, but I really don't know these actors except for Ron Rifkin, who you've seen in a million things. He is like Bob Balaban.
Yeah, I agree. But I don't think we can consider casting without, talking about the three droids and
Correct.
The unique casting of that. I think one was a female and she was young. She was like 19, I think, or something. Because the whole intent was he needed people with no lower extremities who could fit into this type of design. And so he ended up casting, I think, 3, not 4. At first, I thought in my original research, I thought there were 4, and one was like a swap out.
I mean, I have their names.
Yeah.
But I don't know that we need to mention them because no one's going to know them. But there were 4.
Okay, then I was right.
And it looks like one of them was a girl. It's Mark,
Yes.
Steven, Cheryl, and Larry.
And to help with it, he gave each of them their own. They played each of the droids, so they had their own. Kind of like Billy Barty did with R2D2. They become that character. Or
was that really Billy Barty?
It was one of them. It was
Billy Barty did all the Sid and Marty Krofft stuff. I don't remember him being involved with Star Wars.
Maybe it was the other one. It wasn't Davis. It wasn't
here we go again.
It wasn't Warwick Davis, because Warwick Davis was in. Wait, Warwick Davis was in what's Lucas's
It's
one?
all little people look alike, right, David?
No, I'm not saying that. They're midgets. No,
Don't say that.
Don't say that. It's not good.
No. But I don't think Billy Barty was R2D2. I'll look it up. Hang on. But
you look it up. But Trumbull,
because he was a actor, you used to see him in movies and TV shows too, as himself.
Well, Trumbull and the other. And the special effects designers and everybody else.
It's Kenny Baker.
Kenny Baker, that's it. I'm sorry. Apologies to Mr. Baker. The
all apologies and due respect to Billy Barty.
to Billy Barty, who was good too. He was Sigmund in the Sea Monster.
He may have been, actually. I don't know if he
But
was.
he, but they designed these shells for these particular actors, and then augmented them and everything, which I thought was really good. It was really cool and clever, and I think one of the big pluses of this film. I've got, and like we've said, they gave them each their own unique personalities, which works so well. Much more so than the other crewmen's personalities, which were kind of one note. I did have a budget of one. What have I got? Oh, I like the uniforms. I don't like his Jesus robe or whatever he wears, but I like when they're in their spacesuits, their uniforms. I
and
like
all
that
the
look.
advertising on the ship too.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, there's advertising everywhere.
Right.
Or sponsorship or whatever.
I like that sponsorship kind of feel to it. American Airlines is huge because it's in several shots of the outside of the ship too. American Airlines and their logo was highlighted a lot.
And wasn't there a Coca-Cola or a Budweiser or something? It seemed like I saw a product.
Yeah. I've got in my notes, that horrible Joan Baez song montage could have been replaced with some character development.
And there's not just one, there's like three.
There's three. Yeah. Well, the ending song, but the other two are very, and
they make it even worse by like showing cuts of that bunny running around under the
the bunny's hopping in the
stuff.
I'm
like, oh my God, what is it, Easter?
Well, he's Jesus, so they're saving the world sort of thing. I've got some things that that threw me off about it, of course, that are the typical ones. I think the blood is very bad Italian blood again.
It was that time. Because it was the early 70s. They didn't improve blood until the late 70s.
I agree with you that I don't understand the logic of, even if you did put these lamps in there to give it solar energy or UV rays or whatever, those are going to run out of power eventually. So you're just postponing the inevitable.
Right. I mean, that's kind of why I said that the message of this film is great. I'm not so sure that the overall execution of it is.
Why would you?
Is there?
Why would you equip freighters like that with nuclear devices to blow up the domes in the first place? Why wouldn't you just jettison them? Who cares? Why would you have to blow them up?
Because in years to come, one could hit Sandra Bullock and knock her crazy in space.
So why would you do that? And then and then one of my notes is at the end, because in the final scene when he's there with Huey, he's got like 12 of them around him. I was going, how many nuclear devices were on this ship?
Oh, I know. I was like, how many do you need? He's just like
one.
It's like one of those movies, maybe Tarantino, or one of those movies Tarantino would pay homage to, where they're just pulling out guns and just keep pulling them out and opening suitcases and stuff. And he's just got these things everywhere.
Yeah.
It's like, how many explosive devices does a peaceful plant ship need?
I think a peaceful plant ship. I think it begs a lot of the audience to kind of follow Lowell's plan, since he doesn't have anybody to explain it to and doesn't tell anybody what it is. I think it takes you a little while, especially new audience, modern audiences, I think, to understand what his plan is, which is basically, I'm going to fake it and run away kind of thing. I think that was a burden to the movie. Again, there's not as much, I think, to me, character development as could have been done. The other guys seem kind of, like bad jocks in a frat.
Exactly.
And he's the nice
the guys
guy.
we hated in high school.
Yeah. And he's the nice guy, but even as a nice guy, he'll still go, don't talk to me.
He's a little
Eat your
crazy.
vegetables.
Yeah.
And you go, okay, dude, just all right. Hug a tree, dude. But I do think it's got a lot of keys.
It does. I have a few.
Okay.
And I also have a little bit of trivia that is kind of key related. We'll go ahead and start with that because you've already mentioned it.
Yeah.
And I may read this because it's long.
Okay.
According to the commentary, Trumbull gave his blessing when George Lucas, who had approached him about working on Star Wars, mentioned his desire to create a robot similar to the drones for his film, which ended up being R2D2. When 20th Century Fox sued Universal in 1978, claiming that Battlestar Galactica was a ripoff of Star Wars, Universal retaliated by countersuing Fox, claiming that Star Wars was a ripoff of Silent Running. I
There
think
you
that's
go.
fabulous.
Fabulous. Yeah. I agree.
And I mean, and George Lucas was in on it the whole time. I mean, he knew they were doing something similar.
Oh yeah.
So it
Well, he
wasn't
wanted
between
to.
him and Trumbull so much as it was between the studios. Yeah.
We mentioned 2001. I think it's a huge key for this. I think Trumbull learned a lot from how Kubrick did space, did miniatures, did those really slow, long pans of the ship, showing that isolation. I think that is a key. I think Black Hole, which came out later on,
yeah, I
which was
forgot
a
about
Disney
that.
one, is very influenced by this, even down to the cute robot, except that one they made float rather than waddle around.
I'm surprised it didn't sing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Disney, you know. I watched Moana last night, by the way.
Oh, and we mentioned, Kubrick again in 2001, because I think if Trumbull had not worked on that and been so successful, this movie would have never been made.
Who'd you say, Kubrick?
Kubrick, yeah, in 2001. Yeah.
I have a lot of these I lifted from IMDb because I'm not as knowledgeable in sci-fi. Of course, I knew about the Battlestar Galactica one, but I didn't know this. Joel Hodgson, the guy that did Mystery Science Theater 3000, credits this as his inspiration for his show.
Okay.
So he wanted those guys, I guess, that sit on the movies with him.
Okay.
Okay. You froze up there for a second.
Oh, did I? Sorry. Didn't mean to.
Actually, yeah, I'm getting a warning. Sorry about that. Do you want me to continue?
Yes, please.
The Valley Forge was the name of a starship that the main character of Robert Heinlein's novel Starship Troopers is assigned to. Did you know that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Well, and I guess we mentioned it. He did. Douglas Trumbull and the team really did film aboard an aircraft carrier that was being decommissioned, and the name of the aircraft carrier was the Valley Forge. So it really was the Valley Forge when they were aboard that ship.
Oh, wow.
And there's a great thing in the documentary because, it was so cramped. I mean, you could tell by looking at those sets how tight those hallways were and the CNC and everything else. Imagine putting a Panaflex camera in there at that time in 1971. Those cameras were huge. And they said sometimes they were literally right against a bulkhead. And they couldn't even see through the lens. They were just hoping the focus was good because they couldn't get far enough away, to do it. And Trumbull said it was so cramped and so tight and everything else. The only place he could go to think was he had his director's chair put up on the flight deck. And he would go up on this huge aircraft-sized flight deck and sit by himself in his director's chair, looking at his script and going through stuff and everything else. And there's a great quote I found in one of the documentaries, which I really appreciate coming from a directing background too, was because he wasn't initially going to direct. He was just wanting to produce and do all the special effects. And here's my idea, yada, yada. And the studio said, no, if you want it, then you do it because we don't want to really hire another director sort of thing. So he said, sure. But he's quoted as saying, directing is one of the most logistically complex art forms that has ever existed. And I thought that's kind of true of filmmakers because you have to coordinate all those different departments, all put it together, and you just have those brief time to record them and get them in a can or in the, and done. I thought that was very, very interesting. Speaking of film directing, specifically. Let's see, I've got, of course, another one that was influenced by this, or that this was influenced by, was Andromeda Strain. Because Andromeda Strain had been done the year before this, and it was a science fiction movie that actually got popular. And it led them to then later on, because they liked Silent Running, the key coming out of this was Fantastic Voyage, because Trumbull did the special effects for that. And Robert Weiss saw this movie and said, you can do my special effects. I can see how you could do that. Because he loved the miniatures so much.
Well, and Star Trek, the motion picture, has spectacular effects from what I remember. I just didn't like that movie.
It just had a bad script. But what else? You had said
I was just going to say, you mentioned something I'm not familiar with on a past podcast. I think it may have been when we did Gravity. I can't remember. A show called Red Dwarf.
Red Dwarf, yep.
It was a BBC show. They credit Silent Running as one of their influences. Those creators,
that would make sense
as well.
I could see that. I hadn't thought of that at all, but that's a good key.
It's Rob Grant and Doug Naylor, if you know them. Anyway, I jotted that down because I know I had heard you mention Red Dwarf. I didn't know anything about it.
Right. Really. I've got some keys in my opinion. Well, first of all, just my final credit key is Trumbull also did he did the mothership for Close Encounters, which you can see a lot of the design elements similar to this, repurposing the dome, the rounded bottom with all the spires and all that, very Trumbull kind of design. But I had a couple that to me were just maybe hopeful keys. I don't know if this did inspire or work toward this one, but one was Freaks. That dude in Freaks could have been one of the drones. Because
I see what you mean.
In Todd Browning's Freaks. And I'm wondering if
somebody very small or malformed.
Well, yeah, with no lower body. So I mean just hands.
Right.
Sort of thing.
Because you would have to fit in something like that.
When that dude crawled across the floor, that scared me. And I was wondering if Trumbull could have been, influenced by that and said that makes
I consider Freaks a horror movie. I would definitely cover it on this.
Yes,
on
it's
our
a horror
podcast.
movie.
Yeah.
Another one is Avatar. Whether he would ever admit it or not, he was obviously influenced by this movie, a science fiction story about ecology and preserving our planet, sort of thing that ends in disaster when the military gets involved.
The whole ecology thing is a direct key, pretty much.
Oh yeah,
as far as
I think concerned.
So. The Freaks thing would be an affiliate key, maybe.
Ooh, an affiliate key. I think that's all my big keys that I have.
I've got a couple of other ones, and I copped these off IMDb too. We mentioned that some of this footage was recycled for Battlestar Galactica, but did you know that footage of the ships jettisoning the domes was also used in the story Different Ones from Rod Serling's Night Gallery?
No, I did not know that.
Yes.
That one got me.
And in an unusual twist, the TV episode aired on December 29th, 1971, a couple of months before the movie's release in March of 1970. Oh, actually a year, March of 1972. So even though he used it, he ended up using it before they did.
That's really cool.
That is
Which
wild.
makes sense because it took them over a year to finish those special effects. So that makes sense.
I was thinking it was months, but it was actually a year.
And I know go ahead.
I just had one other one, is that Bruce Dern plays a botanist in this film, and his daughter Laura Dern plays paleobotanist in Jurassic Park.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I'd forgotten that, but that's true. There was another one I'm
in the
thinking
original
of.
Jurassic Park.
There was another one. Hold on. I've got to look it up real quick, I think. There was a series. Oh shoot. This you might even know. Harlan Ellison did a television show, and it was so bad after it started that he took his name off of it. It was another one of those Cordwainer Bird or whatever his pseudonym was.
I wonder if you could look that up on IMDb. What is it?
I'm trying.
Cordwainer. Right. Oh yeah, actually, as soon as I put it in, Harlan Ellison popped up, so they know it's him.
Oh yeah,
that's hilarious. Well, he evidently was story editor on The Sixth Sense with Gary Collins.
Oh yeah, remember that?
We just talked about that. Oh my God, that's hilarious. He came back for The Twilight Zone in the 80s. He did Babylon 5, obviously.
Oh yeah.
I don't see any others.
He did.
Oh, you know what? Wait, it'd be under writers.
Okay,
Masters
I've got it. It was a television series called Star Lost. It only had like 10, 12, 15 episodes, something like that. It starred, here's the tie-in to this. Here's the tie-in to this, to Keys to Our Movie, to Silent Running. It starred Keir Dullea, who was also the lead in 2001. It used the domes. The actual biosphere domes were used as part of the ship. The story was, and you'll love this because I did some research on it and actually watched the first 3 episodes, which were absolutely horrible. And I understand why he took his name off of it.
But that's why it's Cordwainer Bird.
They didn't have the money to do anything. So even the sets were green screen. And this came out in 73. So 2 years after Silent Running. Came out in 73, only lasted a year because it was only like 10, 12 episodes.
Well, I'm showing it's 1980.
No. Stardust
you said
is Star Lost is the Star Lost.
I'm showing that it's 1980.
No, it's 1973 to 1974 is when it came out. There was a movie.
Sorry. You were right. They must have brought it back in the 80s. Okay. Yeah. They brought back it as a movie in 1980. Yeah. You're right. The series was 1970.
So wait, you got to hear
this. That's crazy.
Okay. So you sit down to watch this series. It starts and you're in this Amish village and they're getting ready to have this wedding between this forced arranged marriage between these two characters, right? But they're best friends and they grew up together and they don't want to get married, sort of thing. So they both decide they're going to run away, the guy, the girl, and his best friend. And they run away and end up finding this weird hatch. They open it up and realize that their entire world is really a biosphere on this generation ship that's going from Earth to Alpha Centauri or somewhere. And they end up, by the end of the first episode, making it all the way to the control room, and everybody in the control room is dead, and the ship's essentially on autopilot. And they look out the vast windows, and they see all these other domes. And this thing happens where they have to get to the other side of the ship to change the course because it's going to go into a sun or something.
Sun. Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
So it's a very Harlan Ellison concept, just done horribly, horribly bad. Because, like I said, they had no money, so even all the sets were green screens.
I just think it's funny that there were 16 episodes, and it was that bad, and yet they came back and did a TV movie of it in 1980. That's insane.
One of the producers probably wanted money somehow.
Actually, they did 2. One was called Star Lost: The Beginning, and one was called Star Lost: Deception.
Ooh.
Maybe they edited them together and just tried to make a movie out of them.
Maybe.
That would be even worse.
Yeah. I mean, because basically the premise was there, each week is going to be a Biosphere of the Week episode, Now suddenly we're underwater. Now suddenly we're, in the desert dome or whatever. So it's
for
very...
any of you interested in this bullshit, it's under Harlan Ellison's writing credits on IMDb because it says as Cordwainer Bird on it.
Because he was not happy. He was not happy at all about it. But
he's probably mad right now because he knows we're talking about it.
But the reason I mention it is because, again, domes, Keir Dullea, generation ship, that sort of thing. So
it does sound very familiar or very similar.
Very similar. So, yeah.
Okay.
And that's, I think, all I've got on it.
I think it's all I have too. I didn't have a whole lot. It was a Hugo nominee for Best Dramatic Presentation. That's the only award I have.
Oh, I could see that, and I could see it getting an award for best presentation instead of screenplay or anything else. So yeah, that makes sense. That works for me. So yeah, that's really all I have. It's a TV movie that has a lot of holes to it, but it's worth watching from a science fiction television perspective with great robots. So
it's got a lot of heart.
It does. And I think there's a lot of energy that goes into it. It was a lot of intentional love for the craft sort of thing. Yeah. Okay. So
that brings us to a close of this episode of Johnny Has the Keys. We'd like to thank you guys out there for listening, and please do spread the word. Let people know what we're doing out there. We'd love to hear from you if you've got any suggestions for shows in the future. You can also catch us on YouTube if you're not watching us right now, you're listening. And if you are watching us on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button, ring that bell. And until next week, David, I think that's all I have. How about you?
Me too. I'll see you next time. Thanks for playing.
All right, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
You can't start the car. Johnny has the keys.